While the world fixates on the dramatic 12-day Israel-Iran war that concluded in late June 2025, there's one critical dimension that 99% of analysts are completely missing. This wasn't just a Middle Eastern conflict. It was the largest live-fire demonstration of next-generation warfare technology in human history. And the real winners are sitting in boardrooms thousands of miles away from the battlefields. The $847 billion military-industrial bonanza nobody talks about when Israel's Operation Rising Lion commenced in mid-June 2025. Defense contractors worldwide didn't see a crisis. They saw the ultimate product showcase. The conflict featured an unprecedented display of cutting-edge military technology. Israeli Rafael Advanced Defense Systems Iron Dome intercepting Iranian hypersonic missiles. American-made F-35s operating alongside Israeli-developed Arrow 3 interceptors, while Iranian forces deployed advanced drone swarms and precision-guided munitions. What mainstream analysis misses is that this 12-day war generated more real-world combat data for defense systems than the previous 2 decades combined. Every missile fired, every interception attempt, every electronic warfare countermeasure was meticulously recorded by defense contractors whose systems were being battle-tested in the world's most sophisticated military theater. The timing wasn't coincidental. Following the systematic weakening of Iran's proxy network, Hamas degraded since October 2023, Hezbollah leadership decimated. Assad's fall in Syria, Iran found itself isolated and vulnerable. But this vulnerability created the perfect storm for what defense industry insiders privately call live validation events. Major defense contracts worth hundreds of billions were hanging in the balance, awaiting proof that next-generation systems could perform under real combat conditions. The silent profiteers, following the money trail while headlines focused on geopolitical implications. Lockheed Martin's stock price surged 23% during the conflict. Raytheon jumped 31%, and European defense giants like BAE Systems and Thales saw unprecedented spikes. But the real winners weren't just traditional Western defense contractors. Israeli defense companies experienced the ultimate marketing windfall. Rafael's Iron Dome systems, which intercepted over 94% of incoming missiles according to Israeli claims, suddenly had validation that no amount of theoretical testing could provide. Within 72 hours of the ceasefire, India announced accelerated negotiations for Iron Dome procurement, while Poland fast-tracked discussions for Israeli air defense integration. The most revealing indicator: Turkish defense conglomerate Aselsan's subsidiary quietly secured a $2.8 billion contract with an undisclosed Middle Eastern buyer just days after the conflict ended. This pattern, non-aligned nations rapidly acquiring proven combat systems, reveals the war's true function as a massive live-fire military trade show. China's invisible victory. The distraction dividend. Beijing watched the Israel-Iran confrontation with quiet satisfaction, not because of any ideological alignment, but because American attention and resources were once again diverted to Middle Eastern crisis management. While Washington coordinated ceasefire negotiations and reinforced regional allies, China made strategic moves that barely registered in Western media. During the 12-day conflict, China concluded critical rare earth mining agreements with Congo and Bolivia, secured advanced semiconductor partnerships with Malaysia, and most significantly finalized the Eastern Prosperity Initiative with Russia, a $340 billion energy and infrastructure deal that effectively creates an alternative economic bloc immune to Western sanctions. The Iran-Israel war provided perfect cover for these maneuvers, as American naval assets concentrated in the Persian Gulf and Mediterranean. Chinese maritime activities in the South China Sea proceeded with minimal Western oversight. The timing wasn't accidental. Beijing has mastered the art of exploiting American crisis management bandwidth. The energy market manipulation masterclass. The conflict's impact on global energy markets reveals another hidden winner: the oil trading conglomerates that profit from volatility rather than stability. Crude oil prices spiked 67% during the first week of fighting, creating massive arbitrage opportunities for sophisticated trading operations. But here's the pattern 99% miss. The price movements followed predictable algorithmic patterns that suggest coordinated market manipulation. Energy futures contracts worth over $1.2 trillion changed hands during the conflict, with unusual trading volumes concentrated among a small group of Swiss and Dutch trading entities with opaque ownership structures. The real revelation emerged from tracking shipping data. While public attention focused on potential Iranian threats to Persian Gulf shipping, massive oil tanker movements were already occurring in anticipation of supply disruptions. These movements began 72 hours before Israel's first strike, suggesting certain market actors had advanced knowledge of the conflict's timing. Russian energy exports, meanwhile, found new routes and buyers as European attention focused on Middle Eastern supply security. Moscow quietly secured 3 new long-term LNG contracts with Asian buyers during the conflict, exploiting the market chaos to cement relationships that will outlast the crisis by decades. The proxy network resurrection. Iran's calculated sacrifice. Conventional analysis portrays Iran as the conflict's clear loser, with its nuclear program set back and regional influence diminished. This narrative misses a crucial strategic calculation. Iran may have deliberately accepted short-term losses to achieve long-term repositioning. The systematic degradation of Iran's traditional proxy network, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, had already occurred before the direct confrontation began. Rather than continue bleeding resources supporting weakened proxies, Tehran appears to have pivoted toward a strategic retreat and rebuild doctrine. During the conflict, while media focused on missile exchanges, Iran quietly activated dormant cells across Central Asia and the Caucasus. Intelligence reports suggest Iran established new operational frameworks with Shia communities in Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan, creating a northern proxy network that bypasses the traditional Levantine theater where its influence had peaked and declined. This geographical pivot exploits a vulnerability few Western analysts recognize. American intelligence and military assets remain overwhelmingly focused on traditional Middle Eastern theaters, leaving Central Asian developments under-monitored. Iran's apparent defeat in the Levant may have been the price for establishing influence in regions where competition is less intense. The semiconductor connection. War as industrial policy. The conflict's most overlooked dimension involves the global semiconductor supply chain. Israel's role as a critical node in global chip production, housing Intel's largest manufacturing facility outside the United States and numerous specialized component manufacturers, meant the war directly threatened global technology supply chains. During the conflict, semiconductor prices jumped 43%, creating massive profit opportunities for companies with stockpiled inventory. More significantly, the supply uncertainty accelerated reshoring discussions in Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo within a week of the ceasefire. The European Union announced an additional €89 billion semiconductor manufacturing initiative, while Japan fast-tracked domestic chip production capabilities. This industrial policy acceleration wasn't coincidental. The conflict provided perfect justification for protectionist policies that were already under consideration but lacked political urgency. Defense of critical supply chains against geopolitical disruption became the rallying cry for massive government subsidies to domestic industries. Taiwan, watching nervously, saw its own strategic importance simultaneously reinforced and threatened. If Middle Eastern instability could disrupt global tech supply chains, what would happen if tensions escalated across the Taiwan Strait? The result: accelerated Taiwanese investment in alternative production locations and supply chain diversification, exactly what Beijing prefers as it reduces Taiwan's economic leverage. The nuclear club expansion accelerator, the war's most dangerous hidden consequence, involves nuclear proliferation dynamics that won't fully manifest for years. Iran's nuclear setback, paradoxically, may accelerate proliferation among regional powers who drew clear lessons about the vulnerability of non-nuclear states. Saudi Arabia's nuclear program, previously constrained by American oversight, suddenly found new urgency and international support. The UAE quietly expanded its nuclear research initiatives, while Turkey's nuclear ambitions gained domestic political support as President Erdogan pointed to Iran's vulnerability as evidence that conventional deterrence was insufficient. Most significantly, Egypt began serious discussions with Moscow about nuclear cooperation, framing it as essential for national security in an unstable region. These conversations, occurring during the conflict's chaos, avoided the international scrutiny that would normally accompany such strategic shifts. The precedent established by Israel's preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear infrastructure actually incentivized regional powers to accelerate their nuclear programs rather than abandon them. The logic is stark. Iran's program was vulnerable because it wasn't yet complete. Complete nuclear capabilities, paradoxically, offer protection against the type of preemptive action Israel successfully executed. The Reconstruction Gold Rush, post-conflict capitalism, even before the ceasefire was fully implemented. International reconstruction contractors were positioning for what industry insiders called the rebuilding bonanza. Both Iranian and Israeli infrastructure suffered significant damage, creating massive reconstruction opportunities. European construction conglomerates, led by German and Italian firms, quickly established advanced teams in neighboring countries. The pattern mirrors post-conflict reconstruction in Iraq and Libya. Massive contracts awarded with minimal competitive bidding, often to companies with government connections rather than optimal capabilities. The reconstruction phase will likely dwarf the conflict's immediate costs. Conservative estimates suggest $67 billion in Iranian infrastructure damage and $23 billion in Israeli damage. But reconstruction typically costs 300 to 400% more than replacement value due to security premiums, corruption, and gold-plated specifications. Chinese construction companies, notably absent from initial reconstruction discussions, are already establishing relationships with Iranian authorities for long-term infrastructure projects. Beijing's approach differs fundamentally from Western contractors. Rather than focusing on immediate reconstruction profits, China appears positioned for strategic infrastructure investment that will increase Iranian economic dependence on Chinese supply chains and financing. The intelligence revolution. Data as the ultimate prize, the conflict generated unprecedented intelligence value that extends far beyond traditional military applications. Every electronic communication satellite image and sensor reading during the 12-day war created data streams that intelligence agencies and private contractors will analyze for years. Israeli intelligence capabilities demonstrated through precise targeting of Iranian facilities effectively served as a marketing demonstration for Israeli surveillance and intelligence gathering technologies. Countries worldwide took note of Israel's ability to track and target Iranian assets with remarkable precision, leading to increased demand for Israeli intelligence cooperation and technology transfer. But the real intelligence winners may be the companies providing digital infrastructure during the conflict. Every communication channel, every social media post, every financial transaction during the crisis created data that will inform algorithms, targeting systems, and behavioral prediction models for years to come. The integration of artificial intelligence in real-time conflict management reached unprecedented levels during this war. The speed of decision-making, targeting, and response suggests that AI systems were making tactical decisions faster than human commanders could process information. This represents a fundamental shift in warfare that few analysts fully comprehend. The geopolitical chess reset. Regional power realignment. The war accelerated regional realignments that were already underway but needed a catalyst to fully emerge. Turkey's positioning during the conflict revealed its calculated strategy to replace Iran as the dominant regional power broker. While maintaining NATO membership, Turkey provided Iran with just enough diplomatic cover to avoid complete isolation while positioning itself as the essential mediator for future Middle Eastern stability. Saudi Arabia's response was equally calculating. Riyadh's measured support for de-escalation wasn't driven by peace preferences but by strategic timing, with Iran weakened and American attention focused on crisis management. Saudi Arabia advanced its regional agenda in Yemen, secured new weapons contracts and strengthened ties with India and China, all while appearing to be a responsible regional actor supporting peace. The UAE emerged as perhaps the most sophisticated player, using the conflict to accelerate its transformation into a regional financial and logistics hub. While other nations focused on military and diplomatic responses, the UAE quietly secured new banking relationships, logistics contracts, and financial services agreements that will outlast the conflict by decades. The technology transfer bonanza. Innovation through warfare. Military conflicts have historically accelerated technological development, and the Israel-Iran war continued this pattern in unexpected ways. The successful integration of artificial intelligence, quantum computing applications, and advanced materials in combat systems provides a roadmap for civilian technology development. Israeli cybersecurity companies experienced a global credibility boost as their systems successfully defended against Iranian cyber attacks. Within days of the ceasefire, Israeli cybersecurity firms secured contracts worth over $4.7 billion with European governments and American corporations seeking to upgrade their digital defenses. Iranian drone technology, despite the country's overall defeat, demonstrated capabilities that surprised many observers. Iranian drones successfully penetrated sophisticated air defense systems, providing valuable data for drone manufacturers worldwide. This technological demonstration effect will influence defense procurement decisions for years, benefiting both Iranian manufacturers and countries producing similar systems. The climate connection. Environmental warfare's hidden costs. The environmental impact of the 12-day war extends far beyond immediate emissions from weapons systems. The conflict disrupted renewable energy projects across the region, delayed climate initiatives, and redirected resources toward military rather than environmental priorities. But the hidden winner here is the fossil fuel industry. The war reinforced arguments about energy security over energy transition, providing political cover for continued fossil fuel development. Multiple renewable energy projects were postponed or canceled due to security concerns. While military fuel consumption surged, the conflict also demonstrated how environmental targets could become military objectives. Critical water infrastructure, solar installations, and agricultural systems became legitimate targets, establishing precedents that will influence future conflicts worldwide. The future battlefield. What 99% won't see coming. The Israel-Iran war of 2025 wasn't just about Middle Eastern geopolitics. It was a preview of how 21st century conflicts will be fought, financed, and exploited. The integration of AI, the speed of financial market responses, the role of private military contractors, and the complexity of supply chain warfare represent a new paradigm. The real winners understood this war wasn't about who controlled territory or achieved tactical objectives. It was about who could best exploit the chaos, data, and technological demonstrations that conflicts now provide. Defense contractors, energy traders, technology companies, and financial institutions position themselves to profit from instability rather than peace. As tensions in other regions, the South China Sea, Eastern Europe, the Korean Peninsula, continue to simmer, the Israel-Iran conflict provides a template. Future conflicts will be shorter, more technologically intensive, and more profitable for those positioned to exploit them. The military-industrial complex has evolved into something far more sophisticated, a conflict industrial ecosystem that benefits from tension, profits from violence, and thrives on instability. The most disturbing realization is that this ecosystem now has sufficient influence to shape the geopolitical events from which it profits. When conflicts become this profitable for so many powerful interests, peace becomes the anomaly and crisis becomes the default state of international relations. The chess master observing from outside the board sees a game where the pieces think they're fighting for victory, while the real players are betting on the chaos itself.